Consumable.
Ecco, grazie, sa.
Okay. Quindi che cosa è, no? I'm coming.
Good evening, sir. Looking at all these opportunities you have been giving us, you are the best lecturer of all.
I think, okay, Frank. Mo fẹ́ wo iye tí mo ti. Okay. Am I live now?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I see?
Start.
Okay. Okay, good evening, great scholars. Today's lecture series is going to be focusing on GNS 302. That is Communication in English 3. And just a brief run through of the course outline, then what the exam has, then we will be treating one past questions. Now, a past question is already sent to you through your class reps. I believe most of you should have gotten that now. So I've sent a past question to your class rep. That is 2021-2022 session general studies exam. That's GNS 302 for 2021-2022. And the exam format is always the same every year. That is every session. Now for GNS 302, you are going to have 4 questions. That you are going to answer 4 questions just in 3 sections. Now we have 3 sections in the exam. One is going to be letter writing. That is correspondence. Now in correspondence, you are going to 2 sections. That you are going to write 2 letters. You are going to write 2 letters, at least 2 letters. One of the letters will be a memo. That means you should be prepared to write a memo, then probably a letter. Now, but the section 1 is going to be 4 topics. For letter writing, you are going to choose just 2 of the 4 topics. Now, you are not going to choose the 4 topics randomly. Now, question 1A and B will require you to answer either A or B. Then the other one, C and D, you are going to answer 1 question from C and D, but 2 questions in section 1. So section 1 is going to be correspondence. That is letter writing. Then section 2 is going to be comprehension and interpretation. Comprehension and interpretation. Then that comprehension is going to be basically on logic. Remember, you have done logic in GNS 301, that is 4th semester, HND 1. You have done comprehension. Sorry, you have done logic. And the logic aspect of the comprehension passage is going to be testing you on fact, opinion, fallacy, and inference. So we have 2 questions that are based on your ability to identify facts, your ability to identify opinions, your ability to identify fallacy, and your ability to infer from the passage. Now, some of those questions are not going to be lifted directly from the comprehension passage. So you're still talking on comprehension passage, but I'm still going to give you more explanation on that when we get to comprehension. But just like I said, the section 1 is correspondence, section 2 is comprehension and interpretation based on logic. Then section C is going to be project report writing. On project report writing, we are going to ask you questions on report writing, generally report writing. And the report writing question is going to be testing your ability, your knowledge of report writing. Now, and the basic thing you are going to be focusing on report writing are the definition of report, the types of reports, then you should be able to explain importance of report. Yeah, I think importance of report. Then characteristics of a very good report. So you are going to be focusing on that too. Now, so 3 sections in 1 question. Then from the 3 sections, you are going to answer 4 questions. So 4 questions in 3 sections. So section 1, correspondence. Now I'm going to start with correspondence. Don't forget, in the class, we discussed letter writing. Now that is what correspondence means actually. Now, any communication that involves you using letters and symbols to communicate, that is correspondence. Now, correspondence could be formal letter, informal letter, it could be a memo, it could be some other aspect of communication that will involve you using symbols to communicate, symbols or letters to communicate. Now, in this aspect now, we are going to give you 4 topics, 4 different topics. And the 4 topics, you are going to choose 2 of them to write a letter. Now, let's now go to our past question. That is past question for 2021-2022 academic section. Okay. Now, look at that. Please, engineer, display the question on the screen. Now, check that question out. Exactly the one I sent to your class reps. Okay. We have 4 questions. I'd answer 4 questions in all. I'm still waiting for the question to come up. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Okay, the instruction, answer 4 questions in all. 2 questions from section 1 and 1 each from sections 2 and 3. Now, section 1, that's correspondence. Question number 1 under section 1, that is 1A. Write a memo to the members of your organization in your capacity as the general manager, informing all members to update their CV and submit same to the head of personnel on or before 6 July 2022. All right, that is an example of memo writing. If you are to write a memo, don't forget, memo has a different format, a letter. Now, how is it different? Don't forget, in letter writing, we discussed 2 types of letters, formal letter and informal. And if I told you there's nothing like semi-formal letter. So we have 2 types of letters, that is formal letter and informal letter. So formal letter, precisely, that is what you are going to be focusing on. Nobody's going to give you a formal letter to write in this exam. You are going to write formal letters all through. So formal letter has 9 components, 9 different components. Now, 2 of the 9 components are optional. That is, they are not compulsory. You may not have them in all of your letters. But the other 7 are very mandatory. So, and the components are: number 1, the address. That is the writer's address. So the writer address is the first component. Then the second component is the date. Your date will come after the writer's address. Then the next component is the recipient's address. The recipient address means the address of the person you are writing the letter to. And don't forget, it is a formal letter. Any formal letter is supposed to be an official letter. When it's an official letter, it means you are writing it, addressing it not to a particular person. Then remember, to a person. It is not a personal letter. You are writing it to an office, and that's always advised that you don't address the letter to a person particularly. For example, if a letter asks you to write, if a topic asks you to write a letter to your HOD, even if you know the name of your HOD, you don't have to write the name of the HOD there. Address it to the office of the HOD. Tomorrow, when your letter gets there, another person might become the HOD, and your letter will not be treated because you have written it to somebody, not to the office. So you don't have to write the name of the recipient's address, the official. Now you're writing it to the office that person is holding. Then after the recipient address, the next component is attention line. Attention line is an optional component of that you may not have attention line. Don't forget, attention line means calling the attention of the recipient to the fact that somebody somebody might be preferred for handling the you are indicating in the letter. So that person's name will be in the attention line. Then after the attention line, you have the citation, which actually means the initial greeting, which is usually "Dear Sir" in a formal letter. So you have "Dear Sir." Then after the "Dear Sir," I'm going to give you some description on the board later. So the "Dear Sir" is technically called the citation in a formal letter. Then after that, you are going to have the heading or the subject of the letter. Now, when the subject of the letter in small letters, you underline. But when you write the subject in capital letters, you don't underline, and that is the next component. Then after the subject, the next component is the letter, and that is where you are going to discuss the issue in question. Then the body of the letter is divided into 3: the introduction, then the main body, and the conclusion. Then after that, you have complementary clause. The complementary clause is okay. Please, if you can hear me clearly, please indicate. Just put it in the comment section. Can you hear me? The audio, can you hear me? I can get feedback that the audio is not good. Okay, somebody testified that he could hear me clearly. Yes, no, yes, no. Okay, please, maybe I will project it more louder. Yes, but it's breaking. Okay, maybe you check your network. We are doing our best to work on it from here. Okay. So please, let's continue. It's breaking, the audio is not clear, sir. Yes, we can. Okay, we are working on that. It will be very clear very soon. So I'm going back to the past question now. Write a memo members of your organization in your capacity as the general manager, informing all members to update their CV and submit same to the head of personnel on or before 6 July 2022. Now, if you're writing this kind of memo, your duty has been specified. Your members about a meeting, then you are telling them about updating their CV, telling them the deadline for the. All right. Don't forget, the component of a memo is different from the component of a letter. The memo has 4 basic components. I'm going to show you on the board shortly. For those of you that attended the class on memo, you may not have much problem with that. But let me just give you something on memo. Now, memo has 3 components. Let's assume I am in Department of Languages and Communication. So let's see. Okay. Now, this is the heading of my memo. All right. So, it is called internal memo. Sometimes it is written in full. Now, I want you to project the board. Is the board on the screen? Okay. So, it is called internal memo. Now, it has 4 components now. The first component here is the tool component. And you have okay, let's start from components, then the tool. Then you have your reference. Then you have your date. All these components will have something to demarcate it here. Then you can just rule it all through like this. Now, this is the basic heading for your memo. The from component means the office from which the letter is from. Now, just write, okay, from office of the HOD of this department. Then to who? All students. Now, reference number. Now, the reference number is the number that is always used to register a memo. Now, we want to keep the record of a memo that with the use reference number, and when the memo is going to be when the reply to the memo is going to be sent, so you can also quote the reference number here. So the reference number is technically derived from, maybe like we have this department now, which is communication, language and communication department. You have. Oh, it's not reflecting well. Okay. Now, just something like this, just for example, then you are going to write your date here. Let's see. So the heading of a memo is exactly like this. Then you can have your subjects later. Don't forget that memo says to update the CVs. You can see. This could be the heading of the memo. But what is very important is the way you are going to show the layout, that is the format you are going to use for your heading. So just look at it. It has 4 components, 4 important and major components. So the from components, the to component, and the reference component, then the date component. So that is the format of a memo. Now, it's not something that is very difficult. Now, you are writing it to the general, to the members of your organization. Now, then the body of the essay, sorry, the body of the memo will now include what actually they want you to do in the memo. So, like that now. Okay. So, like this now, the body of your memo will not have much words to represent what you intend writing there. So don't forget, language of a memo is less formal. Then you don't have to write much information in a memo. Just go straight to the point. There is no salutation, there is no complimentary clause in a memo. Just straight to the point. After your heading, then it is the subject that you are going to discuss. The memo here is necessitating it that you should tell them about the deadline for the submission. Just mention every detail that they ask you to take care of there. Then the number 2, that is 1B, the question B. Your school has just increased the school fee for the current session. In your capacity as the president of the Students' Union of your institution, write a letter to the rector of the school appealing that the increment be reversed. Okay, all right, this is a formal letter. Now, don't forget, all you need to do is to write the writer's address, which is your own address, then the date immediately after the writer's address. Now, I've given you some format for your date, for how to write your date in the class. I may not be able to go through that now. Then just follow the format for a formal letter. Write the name of the writer, then the recipient date, then the recipient address. Then the next, you are going to have the, in this kind of a letter, I don't think you need extension line. That's not necessary. Now, what you have to do, after the date, then the recipient address. The recipient address, we have the salutation, which is dear sir. Now, you are going to design a subject, that is a heading for this letter. Now, this could be something like school fee increment reversal. School fee increment reversal, that could be the question. Okay, somebody has a question here. Please, what about report? Report will be the last section. Please wait. When we get to the 3rd section, we are going to write that. We are still on section 1. If you're asking question on report now, you can hold on till we get to section 3. Okay. Okay, somebody is asking if the subject can be in capital letter. Yes, the subject can be in capital letter. If the subject is in capital letter, you don't need to underline. But when the subject is in small letters, then you underline. And don't forget, when you're writing your subject in small letters, you should make sure that all content words are in capital. Okay, content words will start with capital letters. For example, when you have content words, like those that have their inclusively, you are going to start the word with capital letter. But all prepositions, all articles are always in small letters. Small letters for all grammatical words, then all content words will start with capital letter. When you are writing in small letters, then you underline. So you can write it in either way. So in capital letter or in small letter. So let's go. Now, the heading of your letter must be able to summarize the purpose of the letter. That is what we look at when you write your heading. Nobody's going to suggest the heading for you in your letter, but we are going to decide the heading that will give, that will capture the purpose of your letter. So that is the importance of your heading. Now, when they are treating your letter, they must know what specifically you are focusing. It should be able to explain why you are writing the letter. That is the importance of the heading. So capture what we ask you to discuss in the letter in that heading. So okay, in this case now, I've said that you can say school fee increment reversal. That could be a very good heading. Then you are going to introduce your letter. That is, the body of your letter must have introduction. What do you do in the introduction? You tell us what the letter is all about. Just introduce it. Then the first paragraph is introduction. The next paragraph should be the first idea in the discussion. Now, one thing about letter writing, especially if it is a formal letter, don't think because it's a letter you don't have to express your idea using a lot of words. No, 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 no. When you are writing a formal letter, you can have your outline. This is a formal letter asking you to write a letter appealing to the rector to reverse the increment. Now, the first thing you are going to do, make sure you tell him reasons why the increment must be reversed. Now, your reasons may be 2 or 3. So each of the reasons will be in a paragraph. Now, if you have 3 reasons, that means you have 3 paragraphs already for that letter. Then look at it. Your introductory paragraph will make it 4 paragraphs. Then your concluding paragraph will make it 5 paragraphs. It means in that letter you already have 5 paragraphs. So just make sure that you organize your letter into paragraphs. The first paragraph is always introduction. Then the next paragraph will be the discussion of the subject matter. Then the last paragraph will now be the conclusion. So you already have 5 paragraphs. So discuss every aspect of it. Don't forget, in your letter writing, we are going to evaluate you based on 4 parameters. The first parameter is the content of your letter. The content means, have you been able to touch every aspect of the subject of the letter? Now, what we ask you to do in the letter, have you been able to touch that? Have you been able to discuss in detail every aspect of the subject of the letter? So that is the content. Then the content will also ensure that you do not discuss outside the content of the letter. If we ask you to do something, make sure it is that thing we ask that you do in that letter. That is your content. Then the next one is organization. How well you have been able to organize your ideas into paragraphs. That is organization. You are going to lose marks if you don't organize your ideas either sequentially or chronologically. In any way you want to arrange it, just make sure it is organized. Then the next parameter is your expression. The way you have used the English language in your letter, your grammar. That is what we mark in expression. We mark your grammar, your errors, and some other things like that. Then the last one is the mechanical accuracy. How well have you been able to use mechanisms like comma, full stop, all the punctuation marks? How well have you been able to use them? That is what we mark in mechanical accuracy. Then we also mark your capitalization, where you are writing a proper noun and you are starting a proper noun with a small letter, you will lose some mark. And don't forget, when we mark your letter, any error will attract a ring. That is a circle. We circle that error. Then that ring will attract -half. So imagine writing your letter and you have about 10 rings. And you have about 10 rings. Then you are going to lose about 5 marks with the 10 rings. Somebody is asking a question. Okay, are we going to end the memo with signature? All right, yes. In some cases, you have to sign a memo. For example, if the memo is coming from a particular authority, from a particular office. Now, for people to give credence to that memo, it must be signed. It must be signed. And for example, any formal letter must be signed before it is accepted to be official. So it must be signed. Even when you write a letter and that letter is a formal letter, you have to sign it. So likewise, a memo, although we say memo is less formal in terms of language, but it does not mean that in capacity it is also less formal. No, it is always used as the basic means of communication in a formal setting. So since it is the most acceptable means of communication in an organization, then it is going to be addressed as a formal writing. So it must be signed. It must be signed because there's going to be documentation. That is, it's going to be documented, and whenever reference is going to be made to it, it is very important that they see the signature of the writer there. So another question, can you help us with the body of the letter, sir? Sir, please tell me what you don't understand. Don't just say we don't understand. What exactly don't you understand? What side is the salutation of a formal letter? Now, the salutation is always at the left hand side of your letter. You are flushing it towards the left hand side of your letter. That is immediately after the recipient's address. Immediately after the recipient's address. Now, don't forget, every component should stand alone. Every component. Then salutation is a different component. It's a component on its own. So leave a line before you write your salutation, and let it be clear that this is salutation. Your salutation for a formal letter is always dear sir. And don't forget, I have told you. Now, if you are writing a circular, you can say dear sir or ma. But for a formal letter, now it is not necessary that you say dear sir or ma. Just say dear sir. Or if you know the recipient is a female, then you can say dear ma or dear madam. So it is always pardonable when you write your letter and the salutation is dear sir. Then if the recipient is a woman, it is pardonable. It is ignorance that will make you do that. So it's not something they will penalize you for. So just say dear sir. Now, so it's going to be to the left. Okay, then somebody say, how do we address a letter to president? Anyway, how do we address the president? That is your excellency. That is how to address her. So your excellency, then you write the other information there. Okay, so let's leave that. Let's go on. Then the next letter here is, you bought a new LG television set from a warehouse in your area with a year guarantee. The set developed a technical fault within 2 weeks of purchase. Write a letter to the manager of the warehouse to register your displeasure. Okay, now this is a letter of complaints. This is a letter of the heading will not really give any further information. Just you are complaining, so it's a letter of complaint. You can just make your heading to be letter of complaint, and then the body of the letter will be for you to complain, then for you to tell them what you actually want. Do you want a refund of your money, or do you want them to change the item for you? Or so you are going to specify that. But the first thing you do in the letter is to introduce the problem. Talk about the problem, then talk about the displeasure it has brought. So talk about your displeasure, then talk about what you want them to do. Then you conclude the letter. So like I have explained now, that letter is going to have about 4 paragraphs, at least 4 paragraphs. Introduction, then introduce the problem, then tell us what the problem is exactly, what it has caused. Then the last part, tell us what you want them to do to the problem. Then you conclude your letter. That is 5 paragraphs. So you organize them, starting, that is going to be organized sequentially. So then, complimentary close, you are through with your letter. The last letter, let's be fast about it now. A member of your staff was found guilty of corruption and negligence of duty after a thorough investigation. Write a letter of dismissal to disengage him from your organization. Oh, the letter already has a very good heading or subject. It is called a letter of dismissal. That is simple. When you're writing a letter of dismissal, you are going to give some information, like you have given the person a query before, and since you have noticed that the behavior he received the query for has not changed, then the organization has taken this decision to dismiss him. That's why. So tell him in the letter, tell the person what the offense is, and let it be stated that you have previously warned the employee in a way. So please, the way you are going to write your letter, let me see if there is any other question. Will the 1C be in form of a formal or informal letter? Which one is 1C? Yes, every letter you are writing here, every letter here is a formal letter. There is no informal letter here. So even the C, which is you bought a new LG TV, it's a letter of complaints. It's a formal letter. So that is it. It's a formal letter. You are going to address it as a formal letter. Another question, please. But can we sign at the end of the letter in the exam letter writing? See, the way you are going to write a letter in the real life situation is the same way you are going to write it in the exam. The only thing is that the exam letter writing is creative. It's going to be something that's not really happening to you. Like I discussed in most of my classes, you are asked to write a letter to your uncle in the UK, complaining about a problem you have in your family. And basically, you don't have any uncle in the UK. Your own uncle is in Shaki. So, but the letter asks you to write a letter to your uncle in the UK. You are going to take your uncle, who is in Shaki, you are going to take him to the UK. And you are going to write a letter to him, assuming he's in the UK. So, letter writing in exam is a creative writing. So, the same way you are going to write it in the real life situation is how you are going to write it in the exam. So, you are going to sign it. That is it. It's a formal letter you're going to. So, what side is the yours faithfully of a formal letter? Okay, I think I will not be able to put some things on the board for you. If I had done that before the start of the class, it would have been better. But now, the yours faithfully, the side it will be, it depends on the format you have used. There are two formats for writing your letter. If you are using indented format means you are leaving indent. You see, this little space you leave after the margin to begin your writing is not the paragraph. That little space is called the indent. Now, if you are leaving indent to start your paragraph, you have used indented format. So in the indented format, yours faithfully is going to be to the right hand side. To the right hand side. But if you have used block format means you are not leaving indents. You are only demarcating your paragraphs using space after each of the paragraphs. That means your writing is going to begin very close to the margin. You are not leaving any space before the margin. So that means, let me give you an example of that. Now, the body of your letter. So this is not a memo now, but you are starting your letter. You have written your address. You have written everything. It's the board on the screen. Okay. Now, you are starting your letter. Let's take this line as the margin. This is the margin. So, I am writing this. Now, this space, it's not showing. Okay. So, I want you to see it clearly. Now, this is not a paragraph. This is indent. So if you have used this format for your letter, that is, you are starting your paragraph, leaving a space like this, you have used indented format. So in the indented format, yours faithfully is going to be to the right hand side. Yes, but if you have used the block format, it means you did not leave indents. You started your letter like this. Look at it. So you have started it here. So yours faithfully is not going to be to the right hand side, but it's going to be after let's say this is your conclusion. This is the last line of your letter. So yours faithfully is going to be under here. Then you leave a space, your name. This space you have left here is for you to sign your signature. So yours faithfully to the left hand side if you have used block format, but yours faithfully to the right hand side if you have used indented format. I think that is clear enough. Okay. Now, any other question? But we are still going to write the address while writing the dismissal letter, of course. Is it compulsory for distribution notation to be in a memo, sir? Yes, yes, it is very compulsory, especially if that memo is not for an individual. If that memo is for everybody in the organization, you are going to write distribution. Who and who are supposed to receive the memo. That is the distribution. And if you are writing your memo, I told you, now you may not write your distribution in full. Just write DIST. That is distribution. So then you write colon. Now then you write the list of people that are to receive the memo. Now, for example, if the memo is from the rector to all deans, now you are going to list the you are going to make a list of the deans that are receiving the letter. Dean FFMS, Dean FBCS, Dean. So that is in the distribution list. But if the memo is from the HOD of a department, it could be to all lecturers in the department. In that case, you may not have to write the names of the lecturers one after the other. Just write distribution, all lecturers. That's okay. So distribution notation is always necessary in a memo, please. Now we have to go. Okay, what is it? Now I have told you, nobody will teach you how to write your heading. Just there is no rule that says your heading should be a particular expression. Now you are going to take your heading from the content of the letter. Like this letter that asks you to write a letter of dismissal, you already have your heading as letter of dismissal or letter of termination of appointment, or it is going to be very absurd to write it as sack letter. Just write letter of termination of appointment or dismissal letter. Now, for number C, that is you bought a new LG TV from a warehouse. Now you are complaining, so that one is letter of complaint. Then your school has just increased the school fee for the current session. You want them to reverse the increment. That is school fee increment reversal. That could be your heading. Appeal to reverse another. That's another heading. Appeal to reverse the increment on school fee. Okay, appeal to reverse. That is a very good heading. Okay, so you can develop your heading. Just make sure it is in conformity with the content of the letter, the subject you are discussing in the letter. That's why we call it subject instead of heading sometimes. That is, what and what are you supposed to discuss? Can we write our phone number instead of signature under our name? E.g., when we are writing a letter to a police officer. Okay. You see, the only time it is necessary for you to write your phone number is if you think it will be required for the recipient to get back to you. For example, nowadays when you write your application letter, after the application letter, after the complimentary close, you can write your phone number. After your name, you can write your phone number. That may be necessary. So it depends on where you're writing the letter to. Sometimes it may not be necessary for you to write your phone number. In school, it may not be necessary to write your phone number. What will be required is your matric number or any other information. Okay, so let's go to, please, I want us to start discussion on comprehension and interpretation. Can we put a random name to represent the employee we want to dismiss? Yes. See, since it is a creative writing, just think of a name think of a particular name you are going to give to the employee you are dismissing. So it's not necessarily, please don't write any name that will put you in trouble. Just decide on the name you are going to use. You can choose randomly, yes. How many address will the dismissal letter have, sir? Your letter will always have a recipient. No, you are dismissing an employee. So you are writing his address on the left-hand side of your letter. So the address of the person you are dismissing. So it's going to have two addresses. So the address of the writer. So the writer sometimes for letter of dismissal may be the human resources manager of a company. So the manager might be the person to write the dismissal letter. So the address of the manager will be the first address. Okay, so section 2, comprehension and interpretation. Comprehension and interpretation. Please, let's leave letter writing. If you still have time, we'll come back to formal letter. Let's go to comprehension. Now, the comprehension passage we are going to give you is different from the usual comprehension passage you have been attempting before in several exams. It is not the one like the one you have come across in your WAEC. It's a different one now. So that's why we call it comprehension passage on logic. So it's going to be a logical passage, that is maybe an argumentative passage or an expository passage. Now, where the writer is going to put up facts and some opinions. Now, when the writer is writing, the writer may not be sensitive about committing fallacy. Now, it is the reader or the audience that will discover fallacy from the writing, but the writer will just try to put up facts and opinion. So such is the passage we are going to give you in the exam. So it's going to be full of facts, it's going to be full of opinions, and it's going to contain some element of fallacy in it. And we are going to make you make some inference from the passage. Now, how do you go about that? Like I taught you in classroom, there are two ways to go about comprehension passage. Just see your comprehension passage as a market you have never been to before, a new market. Now, somebody wants you to go and take something from the market or buy something from the market. Now, it's either you ask the person to tell you what he or she wants you to buy in the market, and you know those things offhand, then you go to the market to get them. Then, once you get to the market, because you already know those things, you can easily pick them once you see them. But the second method is for you to leave whatever they want you to buy from the market and go to the market first. That means you are going to read the passage first. Later, after reading the passage, you go back to the questions. So the questions are the things they want you to buy from the market. Can they reduce the noise? I think it's coming in. So now, when you already know what they want you to buy in the market, you can now go to the market. That is the first method. But the second method is you go to the market first, then you come back to get what they want you to buy. That is, you come back to read the questions. Now, whichever way you are going about it, it is a logical comprehension passage. Now, we are going to ask you questions based on your knowledge of arguments, how to identify good or bad arguments. Now, in this passage now, let me quickly see if we can go through the passage. The passage is already on the screen. Read the passage below and answer the questions that follow. To listen properly is hard job and probably one of the toughest skills in the art of communicating. Good listening has nothing to do with proper functioning of one's auditory organs, which is assumed to be inevitable. Good listening, in the sense we are interested in, is not a biological factor but a psychological one. Your auditory organs may be in perfect order when actually you cannot use them creatively. Creative listening implies you're being efficient in the art of concentration. In other words, you concentrate on what one is saying so as to make sure that you hear all that is said. At the same time you are concentrating to hear all that is being said, you are also thinking fast, digesting what is being said, allowing your mental faculties and your memory to accept that which you understand and to reject that which you do not understand, sorting out what you do not understand and storing them somewhere in your brain for further discussion, and all the same time, at the same time, rationalizing what you hear, accepting that which you find rational and rejecting that which you do not find rational. After you must have listened creatively to what you have been told, then you can respond if the need arises. It is quite proper that you respond because the process of response enhances the art of communication. But your response ought to be only a necessary response, a response that will improve your understanding. This understanding is politely questioning the rationality of some of the speaker's arguments. But your response must be constructive, must enhance the communicative worth. It should not be an unnecessary argument or an opportunity for you to express dissatisfaction or disaffection. The ability to listen properly aids communicating and understanding. So, the questions now. Give the passage a title. Most of the questions for this section, I need to tell you, I should have told you before we started the discussion. Now, this exam is nothing to be afraid of. This exam is, in fact, one of the most simple exam to attempt. Now, here you can score over 70 if you are very sensitive to what you should do. Now, this part now, it is very common that we ask you to give the passage a title. Now, the passage has been saying something about listening. That is creative listening. So, what other title do you want to give to it than the art of creative listening, or creative listening, or creative listening in communication, and so on? So, give it a very apt title. That gives you about 2 marks. Then number 2, what can you infer from this passage? Now, what can you infer from the passage? If we give you this question, it is inference question. That is, you are going to make your inference from the passage. You are going to take what you have learned from the passage, and you are going to describe it. From this passage, what I can infer is the fact that effective communication relies heavily on good listening. Your listening skill will enhance effective communication. That is what it's all about. That is what I can infer. So your inference should not be outside that. Then question number 3, according to the passage, creative listening involves the following, except, okay, we may also give you questions like this that will give you options to choose from. Now, we have read the passage. Does it really talk about each of the following? Now, making sure that what the speaker is saying is audible. Okay, that's B. A, if efficient concentration. According to the passage, creative listening involves the following, except efficient concentration, making sure that what the speaker is saying is audible, then that the listener must be a coordination of all the objective faculties. Okay, 2 of these are really in the passage. That is, efficient concentration is emphasized, then making sure that the listener be a coordination of all the objective faculties is also in the passage. But one thing that's not in the passage is that you make sure that what the speaker is saying is audible. No. That is not indicated in the passage. What the passage is emphasizing is efficient concentration and coordination of the objective faculties and so on. So then, question number 4, how will you describe the tone of the passage? Is the passage sermonizing? That is it giving a sermon? Is it analytical? That is it analyzing facts? Then is it argumentative? Now, if you look at the passage, you just consider it. It is not argumentative. Nobody is putting up any arguments here. Now, then it's not a sermon. Then it's analyzing. So the answer here is analytical. The passage is analytical. actually analyzing some facts about listening in communication. Then number 4, how will you describe? Number 5, what is the opinion of the writer about listening as a language skills? That is an opinion question. Now you are not going to miss it. You are going to see opinion question, you are going to see fact question. So in opinion question, we want you to identify opinion of the writer, then we want you to state your own opinion too. What is the opinion of the writer about listening as a language skill? Okay, the opinion of the writer in language skill is the fact that listening is a very crucial skill in language. It is a language skill, but it is very essential. You will see in GNS 101, we taught you about 4 language skills. That is listening, speaking, writing, and reading. Now, but the most important skill is listening, and that is the first skill you acquire as a child. The first skill you acquire as a child, that is listening. So listening, that is what the writer is also emphasizing, that listening is an essential skill. And number 6, state the conclusion of the writer about the necessity of listening skill. This is a very simple question. The conclusion of any write-up is always at the end of the write-up. Now go back to the last paragraph of the passage, especially the last expression. Okay, look at this. The last expression there is the ability to listen properly aids communicating and understanding. Now that is the conclusion of the writer. That is still stating the importance of listening. The ability to listen properly aids communicating, and you can take that one to be the conclusion of the writer. That is okay. All right. Now let me say some things more about comprehension passage. In your exam this time around, you are going to answer questions on facts, opinion, fallacy. What are fallacies? Now, any error that is committed in argument is called fallacy. Now, how will you be able to identify fallacy? Let's start from fact and opinion. Any statement of fact will give you opportunity to verify. That is, this thing that this person said, if you go to verify it, it should be verifiable, that we should be able to get information somewhere. Now, if you see any expression like according to, now you should know that that is a factual statement. According to WHO, with the rate at which youth are consuming hard drugs these days, there will be a lot of mad people on the streets. Now, if it is according to WHO, then it's a fact. But if it is just somebody that is saying that the rate at which youth are consuming hard drugs now, there will be a lot of mad people, it's an opinion, because no research work has been put in place as regards that. So it's an opinion. Then how can you identify opinion more? Now, anytime somebody is using any adjective that is subjective adjective, like the most beautiful thing in life. Okay, how will you say the most beautiful thing in life? Now, that is according to you. You cannot say the most beautiful thing in life is to respect your parents. Although that statement could be something that is, when you consider some cultural aspect of it, or yes, cultural aspect of it. Now, it does not mean that it is a fact because somebody said it's the most beautiful thing. No. How will you say it's the most beautiful thing? That is an opinion. Now, those signals will give you a clue that this is an opinion. But when you see according to, and if a particular author is quoted in a particular expression, that is a fact. That if a particular authority is quoted, that is a fact. And if they are referring to a date that, for example, Nigeria got independence in 1960, a year has been quoted, then that means you can verify it. It's also a fact. So in the passage you are going to be given, we are asking you questions on facts, questions on opinion, questions on fallacy. So fallacy means any error in argument. And most of the time, look at those types of fallacy. there is somebody in the house that can talk more on fallacy, but we don't have time for that this night. Now, we have fallacy that will appeal to government, that is power, or some other things like that. It could be appealing to emotion. Fallacy will appeal to emotion. You are saying something because you want people to pity you. That's appeal to pity. So when you see things like that, that somebody said something that will just create anger in people. So is that so? Like, now, there's no president in Nigeria that does not have 10 houses at least. That is just to raise emotion in people. It is fallacy. So when the statement is tending towards raising emotion or tending towards respecting a particular authority because you don't want the authority to punish you, it is fallacy. So take note of those things in our passage. Then it will help you to identify fallacy, opinion, fact, and some other things like that. Then the last question, they state the conclusion of the writer about the, so you can easily lift that from the passage. Okay. Do we have any question on comprehension passage? Now somebody is complaining about the cameraman. What happened? Okay. So if you have question on the comprehension passage aspect, please ask now. We are taking the last, that is the final aspect, then for us to take the general question. The final section of the exam, is project report writing. So you're going to be answering questions on project report. Now, I've given you some ideas on how to go about that. This exam is just in 3 sections. Very, very simple. The first one, you are going to write a letter or a memo. Second one, you are going to read a passage. You can do that. Question. Okay. Which is number 4? Please help treat number 4 again. Which one is number 4? Did you mean question 4 or what? Okay, I don't understand that question to treat number 4 again. But the person is saying, please can you explain opinion and facts again? I have told you. Now, opinion is based on